Are finasteride and minoxidil required after a hair transplant? The short, truthful answer to that question is no, they're not absolutely required, okay? They're not needed for the hair transplant to grow in well. However, hair restoration is ultimately a multifaceted process of personal preference, and if you're wanting to maximize your overall hair quality results, then finasteride and minoxidil are usually good ideas to use in combination treatment. So not absolutely required, but recommended in the vast majority of cases. So here are the facts about hair science and hair transplants. The hair follicles on the sides and the back of the head are not susceptible to DHT and its thinning effects the same way that the hair follicles on the top of the head are. Why is that? We don't really know exactly why. It occurs in that pattern. It's just an evolutionary observation that we've made in science. But we do know, based on scientific experiments done decades ago, that donor hair that is moved to the top of the head in the balding areas continues to grow as it normally would in its original location. And we also know that thinning hair that was moved from the balding areas to the donor areas on the back and the sides continued thinning as it normally would based on its genetic sensitivity to DHT on the top. So it's the genetic construction of the hair follicles themselves, top versus back and sides, that determines whether they rapidly miniaturize from DHT, not the location and not the surrounding environment. The location is just what we observe, but it's the genetic characteristics of the hair follicles that determine whether they're going to thin or not. So when you take donor hair follicles that are resistant to DHT and you put them on the top of the head, they're not just going to magically start thinning because they do not have that genetic characteristic. They are going to continue to grow for most of life, even if you don't use finasteride or minoxidil. This is a big misconception that I read a lot of times online. The truth is that finasteride and minoxidil are not needed for the transplanted hair to grow at full strength after a hair transplant. I see a lot of people post about that online, about disappointing growth results after having hair transplants. People will reply and say, oh, that's because you're not taking finasteride or using minoxidil and things like that. And these are just inaccurate explanations for poor hair transplant growth. Okay, finasteride and minoxidil has nothing to do with transplanted hair growth. But all that said, if you're getting a hair transplant on only a part of the top of your head, and there is still original hair behind that area of hair loss or mixed in between the transplanted hair grafts, then that hair will continue to thin and miniaturize as it would with natural, hair loss over time without the use of finasteride or minoxidil. So that's why finasteride and minoxidil are, universally recommended, is because it's saving and preserving your original hair that is still there. You don't want to end up with awkward gaps and things in between the transplanted hair and the donor area, and you don't want to be super low density where the hair transplant was done. You want to preserve hair that's still there in between. So that's why you want to take the finasteride and use minoxidil. Now, there are some situations in which, like Norwood 7s, which is the most advanced stage of hair loss, who have lost all of the hair on the top of their head, they may be able to get away with not using finasteride or minoxidil because there's no original hair left to even preserve through those treatments. And if they have a hair transplant done and it looks decent, then like I said, the hair transplanted hair will continue to grow without any additional help. And if they're happy with the look of that situation, that's totally fine with them. But in most cases, I still recommend finasteride and minoxidil use to Norwood 6s and 7s because it maximizes the overall strength and quality of the hair growth. Finasteride can even help keep DHT away from slowly, increasing its effects on your donor area hair over the decades. And minoxidil can stimulate all hair, no matter where it's located on the body, by the way. So minoxidil can sort of counteract age-related thinning that comes with age. So finasteride can act as that additional protector of the donor area hair from slowly thinning over the decades, and minoxidil will increase blood flow and thicken the hair strands to sort of counteract the effects of age-related hair thinning. So finasteride and minoxidil are still a great idea to take even after hair transplants in the vast majority of situations. Are they required for the hair transplanted hair itself to grow? No, they're not required. But I recommend them in almost every case because it's about maximizing your overall hair quality project, and that's what it's all about. So take care and hope you enjoyed that explanation. See you in the next video.